Dear friends, welcome to our channel. We are delighted to share with you different stories of love and betrayal from around the world. So let's begin our story journey today. The air in the courtroom seemed to have frozen. Gareth clutched the folder in his hand, his gaze calmly fixed on the woman who had once shared 10 years of marriage with him. Penelope's 6-month pregnant form was particularly noticeable under the courtroom lights, and Dominic, standing beside her, had one hand on her shoulder, a nearly provocative smile on his face. Your bank account and investment portfolio, plus the Manhattan apartment and the Long Island villa, I deserve half. Penelope's voice echoed in the courtroom. More importantly, the child in my womb needs adequate child support. This is your child, Gareth. You know it. The judge frowned, looked at Gareth, waiting for his response. Gareth didn't answer immediately. His thoughts returned to 8 months ago, when life had a completely different appearance. 8 months ago, on the 42nd floor of the J.P. Morgan headquarters on Wall Street. The third quarter performance was excellent, Gareth. The board is quite satisfied with the team you've led, the CEO said, patting Gareth's shoulder as the two stood at the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking Manhattan's night view. The team members are all outstanding, especially Dominic. His predictions on Argentine bonds were almost flawless, Gareth responded, with a glint of appreciation for talent in his eyes. That young man definitely has potential, though he's still inexperienced. By the way, will Penelope attend Saturday's charity dinner? The directors are all looking forward to meeting her. Of course, she never misses such occasions, Gareth smiled, picturing his wife Penelope, once the darling of Paris and Milan fashion weeks, now the focal point of New York's Upper East Side social circle. It was already late when he returned to his mansion on Long Island. Gareth went upstairs quietly, not wanting to disturb Penelope if she was already asleep. However, the bedroom light was still on, and Penelope was sitting at her dressing table, carefully applying something. Still awake, Gareth loosened his tie as he walked up behind her. A new anti-aging essence I just got. They say the results are amazing, Penelope said without turning around, her eyes fixed on her reflection, fingers gently massaging the wrinkles on her neck. I heard Vogue is doing a Models 10 Years Later feature, and they contacted me. Gareth bent down to kiss the top of her head. You'll be the most beautiful one. Penelope's hand paused for a moment. It's been 10 years, Gareth. New faces are constantly emerging in the fashion world. No one remembers models from 10 years ago. I remember, Gareth said simply, walking toward the bathroom. Penelope gazed at her reflection in the mirror. At 37, her face still retained much of its youthful beauty, but the subtle changes were known best only to herself. She picked up her phone. Her latest social activity post on Instagram had already received thousands of likes, but far fewer than in her 20s. She scrolled through her phone screen and stopped at a private message. It was from Dominic. Tonight's red dress was stunning. No one in the entire party could compare to you. Gareth is truly the luckiest man in the world. Penelope's lips curved slightly upward, and she replied with a simple thank you emoji. On the surface, Gareth and Penelope's marriage was the perfect union of a Wall Street financial elite and a fashion celebrity. They appeared at various social events, attended charity dinners, and their vacation photos were published in lifestyle magazines. Penelope carefully maintained this image on social media, but in reality, the interactions between them had gradually become mechanical, like completing a task. Gareth was not indifferent to the family. He would regularly arrange weekend getaways, select jewelry for Penelope, and remember anniversaries and birthdays. However, his way of expressing affection was too practical: priceless jewelry, unlimited credit cards, and full financial support for her social activities. To Penelope, these were far from satisfying her craving for emotion and attention. A month later, on a Saturday morning, Gareth was preparing to go to the golf club. Tuesday, we have an important dinner. A few partners from Morgan Stanley will be coming, Gareth reminded Penelope while organizing his golf clubs. Penelope was browsing her phone and answered without looking up. Tuesday? I believe I've arranged a spa with my girlfriends. Can you reschedule? This dinner is important. Penelope raised her head, a flash of displeasure crossing her face. I've booked 3 weeks ago, and Caroline is flying in specially from Los Angeles. Gareth sighed. All right, I'll manage on my own. By the way, your bill from Saks Fifth Avenue last week came in, over $43,000. Is there a problem? Penelope's voice cooled. No, just letting you know, Gareth said calmly, picking up his car keys and preparing to leave. It's always like this, isn't it? Penelope suddenly said, money isn't a problem, but my time and my schedule can always be sacrificed. 10 years, Gareth. How many of my model reunion gatherings have you attended? Last year on my birthday, where were you? Oh, right, in Singapore, handling that merger that couldn't wait. Gareth turned around, his tone even. I thought we had already discussed this issue. This is the nature of my work, but I try to make up for it as much as possible. Last year during your birthday week, we spent 5 days in the Maldives, didn't we? During those 5 days, how many calls did you take? How many emails did you send? Penelope retorted. Gareth glanced at his watch. I'll come back early this afternoon, and we can talk properly. Penelope didn't answer, lowering her head to look at her phone again. After Gareth left, she opened Dominic's message. Over the past few months, interactions with this young fund manager had become increasingly frequent. At first, they only talked at company events where Gareth was present, but gradually it evolved into private message exchanges. Do you have time for coffee today? I have an investment idea I'd like to ask your opinion on. Dominic's message had just popped up. Penelope hesitated for a moment, then replied, I can, but it must be a discreet location. At noon, in a secluded cafe in Manhattan, Penelope sat in a corner wearing large sunglasses. When Dominic walked in, she couldn't help but notice his vitality, 10 years younger than Gareth, and that type of confident charm different from her husband's reserved style. Thank you for coming. Dominic smiled as he sat down. Don't worry, this place is safe. There won't be any of Gareth's acquaintances. What investment advice did you want to ask me about? Penelope asked directly, maintaining a superficial distance but internally enjoying the excitement of this secret meeting. Dominic laughed. That was just an excuse. I just wanted to see you, without Gareth present. You know, at every corporate event, I can't take my eyes off you. Penelope felt a quickening of her heartbeat that she hadn't experienced in a long time. This is dangerous, Dominic. You're Gareth's subordinate, and I'm his wife. It's precisely this danger that makes it so appealing, isn't it? Dominic moved a bit closer. Gareth is a great mentor, but he's so focused on work that he doesn't realize what a treasure he possesses. I often think, if it were me, how I would cherish you. Penelope didn't immediately respond, but she didn't reject his advances either. After this coffee meeting, they began to have more frequent contact. Dominic always found reasons to create opportunities for them to be alone, while Penelope enjoyed the sense of self-worth brought by the young man's pursuit. Dominic's attraction to Penelope wasn't just his youth and enthusiasm. As Gareth's protege, he was familiar with the workings of the financial world, could converse with Penelope about topics from her social circle, while also possessing an impulsiveness and romance that Gareth lacked. In Penelope's eyes, Dominic seemed to be a younger version of Gareth, but one who knew better how to make a woman feel valued. 3 months later, during Gareth's 2-week business trip to London for merger negotiations, Penelope and Dominic's relationship escalated from ambiguous to substantive infidelity. That night, in a luxury hotel suite, Penelope experienced a passion completely different from that with Gareth. I love you, Penelope, Dominic whispered in her ear afterward. You deserve a better life, more attention and love. Gareth has given me a lot, Penelope said with some remorse. Materially, yes, but emotionally, you're his trophy, not his partner. Dominic's words struck the most vulnerable part of Penelope's heart. Have you seen those charts and reports in his office? That's where his true passion lies. Penelope didn't refute. She knew Gareth cared for her, but that care was always rational and restrained, lacking the fervor and impulsiveness that Dominic displayed. Meanwhile, Dominic was also carefully calculating his steps. As a rising star in the financial world, he was ambitious, and Penelope was not only a beautiful and charming lover, but also the key to Gareth's network of contacts. He was indeed attracted by Penelope's charm, but also understood the potential value of this relationship to his career. In the following months, the relationship between Penelope and Dominic grew increasingly close. They would meet when Gareth was traveling or working late, while Penelope continued to maintain the appearance of a perfect marriage on social media. Dominic became increasingly bold, even giving Penelope suggestive glances at events where Gareth was present, while she immersed herself in the excitement of this dangerous game. Have you thought about our future? Penelope suddenly asked one night in Dominic's apartment. Dominic gently caressed her cheek. Of course. But you know Gareth's personality. He won't let go easily. He's very controlling, especially with what he considers his own. I'm not a thing, Penelope said, somewhat irritated. To him, there's no difference between you and his investment portfolio. Both are carefully calculated assets, Dominic said. However, I have a plan. I'm preparing my own hedge fund. Several major clients that Gareth doesn't know about have already promised to invest. Once I succeed, I can provide you with the same life as Gareth, maybe even better. Penelope was tempted. At 38, her modeling career had long since ended, and her social media relevance was declining. Dominic not only gave her the passion that seemed to have been lost, but also promised a new future. However, the turning point of fate came unexpectedly. A month later, Penelope discovered she was pregnant. Since her intimate relationship with Gareth had become very rare, she was almost certain the child was Dominic's. "This is our child," Penelope told Dominic, expecting him to support her as he had promised. Dominic's reaction caught her by surprise. His face grew complex, a flash of panic in his eyes, which he then tried to hide. "Are you sure? This wasn't in the plan. Does Gareth know?" "Not yet," Penelope answered, feeling a stab of unease. Dominic paced for a moment, his expression gradually regaining composure as he considered various possibilities. He finally said, "Wait, this could be an opportunity. If you make Gareth believe the child is his, you could demand more child support and property division in the divorce. When everything is settled, we can be together." Penelope frowned. Deceive Gareth by saying it's his child? I don't know. Think about it, Penelope. Dominic held her hands, his tone becoming soft and sincere. Gareth is so wealthy. To him, this is just a drop in the bucket. And this child, our child, doesn't he deserve the best living conditions? Dominic continued to paint a beautiful future. "My fund is about to launch, and with the resources from Gareth, we can give the child the best of everything. Private schools, vacation villas, a life without restrictions. It's not just for us, it's for the child." Faced with Dominic's persuasion and her own worries about the future, Penelope was finally convinced. She began carefully planning how to make Gareth believe the child was his, while secretly planning a future with Dominic. However, what Penelope didn't know was that Gareth had already grown suspicious. As a financial analyst accustomed to observing details, he had noticed subtle changes in Penelope's behavior: a new phone password, irregular social activities, and overly familiar interactions with Dominic at company events. Most puzzling was that Penelope had recently begun trying to increase intimacy with him, in stark contrast to the distance of the previous months. During his London business trip, Gareth quietly arranged for a private detective to investigate. When the photos and surveillance records were presented to him, his heart sank like ice. But outwardly, he maintained his usual calm. "I need further evidence," Gareth told the detective. "Continue following them. I want to understand all the details of this relationship." The detective nodded. "Do you need recordings or other forms of evidence?" Gareth thought for a moment. "As much detail as possible within the bounds of the law. But don't let them discover you." In the following 2 weeks, Gareth appeared to be focused on the merger case in London, but in reality, spent most of his time reviewing reports and evidence sent by the detective. He not only learned the details of Penelope and Dominic's affair, but also discovered that Dominic was secretly contacting several of his important clients, trying to draw them to his own fund being established. Gareth did not act immediately. After returning to New York, he continued to behave as usual, while beginning a series of covert preparations. He consulted top divorce lawyers, confirmed the effectiveness of the prenuptial agreement, and then underwent a comprehensive medical examination, including a test he had always avoided: a fertility check. The results confirmed his long-standing suspicion. Due to an illness during his youth, he was actually sterile. He had never told Penelope this fact because at the time it didn't seem important, and both had agreed not to have children. When he had gathered enough evidence, Gareth chose a Friday evening to calmly confront Penelope in the home study. "I know about you and Dominic," he said directly, placing the photos provided by the detective on the table. Penelope's face instantly paled, but she quickly composed herself, with a flash of defensiveness and challenge in her eyes. "You had me followed? I would have preferred my suspicions were wrong." Gareth's tone was surprisingly calm. 10 years, Penelope. I thought there was enough respect between us, even if the feelings aren't what they once were. Respect. Penelope suddenly laughed, tears in her eyes, but more from anger. Did you think about respecting me when you put work first? Do you know how lonely I've been all these years? Gareth maintained his composure. We could sit down and discuss our problems, even try marriage counseling. But infidelity is not the solution. Penelope's strategy suddenly shifted, and she decided to take a gamble. Gareth, I'm pregnant. A flash of surprise crossed Gareth's face, but he quickly regained his composure. Pregnant? Yes, 2 months along. Penelope observed his reaction. I was going to surprise you. Gareth didn't expose her on the spot, merely nodded. That is indeed a surprise. I need time to think about our future. Penelope breathed a sigh of relief, believing her plan had worked. What she didn't know was that Gareth had already begun to deploy his meticulously designed counterattack plan. In the following weeks, Gareth appeared to focus on work, while privately conducting a series of operations. He consulted with top lawyers, confirmed the effectiveness of the prenuptial agreement, and began a secret but completely legal financial restructuring, clearly separating personal assets from joint property. Penelope soon discovered Gareth's actions and was furious. You dare to seek a divorce? When I'm carrying your child? Penelope, we both know that's not my child, Gareth said calmly. How dare you accuse me like that? Penelope was enraged. I'll demand a paternity test to let everyone see how despicable you are. Gareth did not argue, simply continued with the divorce process. Meanwhile, Dominic's behavior also underwent subtle changes. He began reducing his private meetings with Penelope, using work busyness as an excuse. In reality, he was busy preparing his own fund company, utilizing the knowledge and contacts learned from Gareth, while secretly attracting some of Gareth's clients. When Penelope questioned him about the distance, Dominic reassured her. It's just temporary, darling. I'm at a crucial stage. I need to give it my all. Once the fund is established, everything will be better. Also, we need to be careful. Gareth seems to be suspicious. Penelope had to accept this explanation, but her internal unease grew daily. She found herself in a dangerous position. On one side, a husband determined to divorce. On the other, a lover gradually distancing himself. Her social circle began to feel the change in wind direction, and some friends started to distance themselves, afraid of being caught up in the impending scandal. As the divorce case formally entered court proceedings, Penelope and Dominic's strategy became publicly humiliating Gareth. They leaked so-called inside information to the media, claiming Gareth had emotionally abused Penelope for years, forcing her to seek emotional support elsewhere. On social media, Penelope portrayed herself as a victim, posting baby bump photos with emotional text, implying Gareth had abandoned her and their unborn child. Dominic, meanwhile, spread rumors in financial circles that Gareth's personal problems might affect his work, trying to shake clients' trust in him. Some people began taking sides, and gossip in Wall Street spread like wildfire. Throughout this process, Gareth maintained a low profile, focusing on work and legal procedures, waiting for the most appropriate time to reveal the truth. One day, Dominic received a phone call from Gareth at his office. Are you free Friday night? I'd like to talk to you privately. Dominic was wary but curious. About what? You should know, Gareth said simply. Friday night, in a private room of a high-end restaurant in Manhattan, Gareth and Dominic sat facing each other. What do you want to talk about, Gareth? Dominic asked, feigning nonchalance. Gareth didn't immediately answer, but took out a folder. You know, as an investment banker, one of my most important skills is evaluating risk and return. So I'm wondering how you assess the risk and return of your relationship with Penelope, Gareth said calmly, especially considering the fund you're preparing and the clients you're trying to secure. Dominic's expression became serious. Is this a threat? This is an honest conversation. Gareth opened the folder, which contained detailed records of Dominic's recent contacts with his clients. I can understand your ambition, Dominic, but you should know that in our industry, trust and reputation are crucial. Dominic was silent for a moment, then said, I don't know what you want. I just want things to be simple and clear. The divorce will proceed. The truth about the child will be revealed. You can choose your path, continue this needless PR war and slander, or focus on your career and give yourself a chance for a fresh start. Dominic thought for a moment. You won't sabotage my fund? I don't need to actively do anything. Gareth picked up his wine glass. The market has its own way of judging. After this conversation, Dominic became even more convinced that he needed to distance himself from Penelope and focus on salvaging his professional prospects. He began reducing contact with her, while intensifying communication with potential investors, trying to solidify his position before Gareth's possible countermove. In court, Penelope's voice was still echoing. This is your child, Gareth. You know it. At this moment, Gareth finally returned from memories to reality. He took a deep breath, took out a neatly folded document from his wallet, and handed it to the judge. Your Honor, I didn't want to get to this point, but she's forced me to do so. Gareth's voice was calm and clear. This is a medical report on my infertility condition done 6 weeks ago, clearly indicating that due to complications from an illness during my youth, I have been sterile for years. In other words, the child in Penelope's womb definitely cannot be mine. A murmur swept through the courtroom. Penelope's face turned pale, she swayed slightly, and Dominic quickly steadied her. That's a lie, Penelope shouted. He's lying. That report must be fake. The judge examined the document, which bore the official seal of a renowned medical institution and signatures of several specialists. He frowned. Ms. Penelope, if Mr. Garrett's medical report is authentic, then the paternity of the child you claim is questionable. Considering this new evidence, I need to reassess your request for property division and child support. No, it's not possible. Penelope stammered, turning to Dominic for support. Dominic's expression was complex, showing both surprise and irritation. He had not expected Gareth to reveal the truth in this way. What worried him most was that this turn could completely change the course of the divorce case, affecting the property division Penelope could obtain, and consequently, their future plans. After the court recess, Dominic pulled Penelope aside. Why did you never tell me Gareth was sterile? I didn't know, Penelope said agitatedly, her hands trembling. He never mentioned this. Dominic paced back and forth, thoughts racing. This completely changes the situation. Obviously, the judge won't support your child support claim now. So what? Penelope grabbed Dominic's hand, a note of desperation in her voice. As long as we still have our plan. Even if I can't get child support, as long as your fund succeeds. Dominic didn't immediately respond, his eyes shifty. Penelope felt a chill creep up her spine. Dominic, she asked cautiously. The situation has become complicated, Penelope. Dominic finally said, his voice very low. My fund is still in its startup phase. It's not the best time to take on additional responsibilities. Penelope looked at him incredulously. Additional responsibilities? You mean me and the baby? I didn't mean it like that, Dominic quickly denied, but his gaze still avoided hers. I'm just saying we need to reassess our strategy. Maybe we should keep our distance for a while, until the storm passes. The hope in Penelope's eyes gradually extinguished, replaced by anger. You're abandoning me? When I need you most. Lower your voice. Dominic looked around, making sure no one could hear. Listen, I'm not abandoning you. But the current situation doesn't favor either of us. Gareth has clearly prepared thoroughly. We need to rethink. Penelope scrutinized Dominic's face, clearly seeing the selfishness and utilitarian attitude in his eyes for the first time. So this is what you call love? Running away when difficulties arise. Dominic tried to appease her. It's not like that. It's just that the timing isn't right. When my fund is established, when the divorce dust settles. Enough. Penelope interrupted him, her voice full of hurt and anger. I understand now. You never really cared about me, did you? I was just a tool to get closer to Gareth's circle, a toy you could discard when you no longer needed me. Dominic's silence confirmed her suspicions. Penelope turned away, feeling both angry and desperate. She had not only lost her husband's support, but also her lover's promises, and more importantly, she realized she had completely destroyed everything she once had. In the following weeks, the court's decision was extremely unfavorable to Penelope. Due to the constraints of the prenuptial agreement and evidence of her dishonest behavior, the judge ruled she would receive only the minimum in property division, with no child support. Gareth retained the Manhattan and Long Island properties and only had to pay limited transitional alimony. Overnight, on Penelope's social media, Those friends who had once fervently supported her disappeared one by one. Luxury brands no longer invited her to events. Invitations to high society gatherings no longer arrived. She tried to contact Dominic, but his responses grew increasingly cold until he almost stopped responding. Penelope had to face a cruel reality. Her social status completely depended on Gareth's wealth and status. Without these, she was just a washed-up model, a woman who would soon be a single mother. Meanwhile, Gareth began his second plan. He did not publicly attack Dominic or Penelope, but chose a more subtle yet lethal approach. In the financial world, information and timing are everything. Gareth, with years of industry insight and connections, began a secretive yet precise operation. He did not directly confront Dominic, but through legal market operations, gradually undermined the foundation of Dominic's new fund. First, through analysis, Gareth discovered that Dominic's fund was overinvested in several high-risk emerging markets. Using this information, he made corresponding adjustments to his own investment portfolio, and through partners, generated news about possible adjustments in these markets. A financial commentator, a longtime friend of Gareth, published an analysis of the risks of these markets in his column, triggering investor caution. Although the article did not directly mention Dominic's fund, its content precisely targeted his core investment strategy. Next, Gareth contacted several key clients who had business relationships with Dominic, not to discredit him, but to share his neutral market analysis, which coincidentally included implicit questioning of Dominic's investment strategy. "I'm just reminding them to pay attention to their risk exposure," Gareth explained to his team. "It's my responsibility, especially to clients who have trusted me for a long time." Most devastating was that Gareth, through a casual conversation at an industry conference, mentioned to a regulatory official his theoretical concerns about a certain investment strategy, precisely the one Dominic's fund was employing. This led to a routine inspection which, though finding no irregularities, generated doubts among investors. "The market is built on trust," Gareth said in an internal meeting. "And once trust is lost, it's hard to rebuild. This isn't about individuals, it's the law of the market." 3 months later, Dominic's fund began to suffer significant losses. Several main investors withdrew their capital, causing liquidity problems for the fund. Dominic tried to salvage the situation, but each step seemed to be on an invisible chessboard set by Gareth. In a chance elevator encounter, Dominic directly questioned Gareth. "You're behind this, aren't you?" Gareth looked at him calmly. "I'm just doing my job, protecting my client's interests, as you tried to do." "This is revenge, because of Penelope and me," Dominic said softly, anger flashing in his eyes. Gareth adjusted his tie. "No, Dominic, this is the market. It rewards caution and honesty, punishes recklessness and betrayal. That's all." The elevator doors opened. Gareth walked out, leaving Dominic trapped in his downward trajectory. Meanwhile, Penelope's life also underwent a complete transformation. Without Gareth's financial support, she had to move out of the luxury apartment and into a small apartment in an ordinary Brooklyn neighborhood. Her social media attention plummeted, and luxury consumption was no longer possible. What made her more desperate was that Dominic completely disappeared when she needed support the most. His calls went unanswered, messages not replied to. She eventually learned through a mutual friend that Dominic, as his fund faced collapse, had quickly gotten engaged to the daughter of a tech executive, clearly seeking financial and social support. "That's just how he is," the friend said with some sympathy, "always calculating his gains and losses, like an algorithm." Penelope gave birth to her child alone, a boy. There was no luxurious baby shower, no designer baby clothes, just the reality and challenges of a single mother. When hospital bills piled up, she tried to contact Gareth, hoping to get some additional support. Gareth's lawyer responded politely but firmly. "Mr. Gareth will strictly adhere to the court's ruling, no more, no less. If you have any additional needs, please make a formal application to the court." For Penelope, accustomed to spending without limits, this situation was an unprecedented blow. She had to look for work to support her life, but discovered that on her resume, apart from former model and socialite, she had almost no substantial professional experience. Finally, through an old friend who was still willing to help her, Penelope found a job as a waitress in a fashion cafe. From the runways of Milan and Paris to serving plates and coffee, this fall was difficult to accept, but for her child, she had to persevere. Meanwhile, Dominic's professional career plunged into a free fall. His fund eventually collapsed completely, with investors filing a class action lawsuit, accusing him of misleading and mismanagement. Though he avoided criminal charges, his reputation was irreparable. The tech executive's daughter canceled their engagement after the scandal broke, delivering another blow to his social status. Dominic tried to contact other financial institutions for work, but discovered that door had closed forever. In every interview, explicitly or implicitly, Gareth's influence was always mentioned. Finally, he accepted a modest position as a financial advisor in a small Midwestern city, far from the glamour and ambition of Wall Street. Gareth completely ruined me. Dominic complained to the few friends still willing to talk to him. Just because I fell in love with his wife. No, the friend corrected him. It's because you betrayed the person who gave you opportunities and then tried to take everything from him. You should know that Wall Street can forgive greed, but never foolish betrayal. Gareth, meanwhile, found a new balance. Work remained important, but he began to dedicate more time to other interests: classical music, sailing, collecting art. He didn't rush to remarry, but maintained several healthy relationships. In the industry, his reputation was not only unharmed by the divorce scandal, but improved due to the calm and professionalism he displayed throughout the process. "You know what?" a director said to Gareth after a quarterly meeting. "The way you handled that personal matter convinced us even more that you're the right person to lead our investment strategy. Precise, efficient, without personal emotions." Months later, Gareth attained a higher position, becoming a key decision-maker in the company's investment strategy. He viewed this promotion as recognition of his professionalism, not as compensation for his personal difficulties. A year passed, and memory in Wall Street is short, but for Penelope, this year felt like a lifetime. She gradually adapted to the new rhythm of life, rising early to take the child to daycare, working all day, and returning home exhausted to care for her son. Her Instagram had not been updated for a long time, and her former followers gradually forgot this name. On an ordinary Wednesday night, while Penelope was working at the cafe, she saw Gareth enter with an elegant lady. They were enthusiastically discussing something, apparently about a new art exhibition. Instinctively, Penelope wanted to hide, but Gareth had already seen her. Their gazes briefly met. A flash of surprise crossed Gareth's face. Then he calmly nodded in acknowledgement. "Do you know her?" the woman with Gareth asked. "Yes, an old acquaintance," Gareth answered simply, and continued their conversation. Penelope, standing behind the counter, felt an unprecedented humiliation and regret. After Gareth placed his order, she had to personally bring the coffee to their table. "Your Americano and cappuccino," she said, trying to maintain a professional tone. "Thank you, Penelope," Gareth said politely, but with no intention of further conversation. When they left, Gareth left a generous tip on the table, but didn't look back. 3 years later, in a luxury restaurant, Gareth was dining with several colleagues, celebrating the success of a major deal. Through the restaurant window, he casually saw Penelope in the cafe across the street, serving coffee to customers. She looked much more haggard, but seemed to have adapted to her new life. One of Gareth's colleagues noticed his gaze. "Isn't that your ex-wife?" Gareth nodded slightly. "Yes. I heard she's having a hard time now," commented the colleague, with a tone of somewhat malicious satisfaction. How ironic, from fashion magazine covers to serving plates. Gareth did not join in the mockery. Everyone faces the consequences of their choices. He turned his attention away, signaled the waiter for more wine, and continued discussing upcoming market opportunities with his colleagues. Days later, Gareth received an unexpected email from Dominic with the subject "Apology and Request." The content was lengthy, full of self-reproach and regret, and finally requesting Gareth's help to return to Wall Street. After reading it, Gareth did not reply, simply archived the email. He didn't need Dominic's apology, nor did he intend to help him. In Gareth's view, some betrayals cannot be repaired, and certain trust, once broken, can never be rebuilt. This wasn't about revenge or forgiveness, but about the natural law of actions and consequences. Meanwhile, Penelope's life also gradually found a new direction. Although she could never return to her former luxury, She began to value real relationships and achievements in life. She started studying interior design at a community college, using her vision and experience from the fashion world to chart a new path. At the same time, as a single mother, she learned independence and strength, qualities she had never experienced in her life of abundance. Sometimes Penelope thought about her marriage to Gareth, about how vanity and greed had blinded her, making her lose everything she could have had. But she never tried to contact Gareth to ask for forgiveness. She knew Gareth had completely removed her from his life, without hate, without love, just a closed chapter. Occasionally news of Dominic came through mutual acquaintances. He had married in the Midwest, had his own children, and was living a plain middle-class life. He always tried to return to Wall Street, but each attempt ended in failure. Not because Gareth actively obstructed him, but because of the collective memory and judgment of the financial world. Traders are always to be viewed with caution. 5 years later, at a national financial summit, Gareth met Dominic again. The two crossed paths in a corridor. Dominic's hair had significantly grayed, and though his suit was decent, it was clearly no longer top-tailored. Gareth, Dominic initiated the greeting, his voice carrying complex emotions. Long time no see. Gareth nodded calmly. Dominic, I heard you're now a partner at the firm. Congratulations. Dominic tried to find a topic of conversation. Thank you. And you? Is the work in the Midwest going well? Dominic smiled bitterly. It's manageable. You know, small town, small clients, small dreams. After a moment of silence, Dominic finally asked the question he had long wanted to ask. Do you hate me, Gareth? For what happened with Penelope and me? Gareth thought for a moment, then answered frankly. No, I don't hate you. Hatred requires investing emotion and energy, and you're not worth that much. A flash of hurt crossed Dominic's face, but he quickly recovered. I understand. What about Penelope? Do you have any news of her? No. Our lives are completely separate, Gareth said simply. Dominic nodded. I see. She tried to contact me several times, but I thought it best not to respond. Let the past be past. Gareth did not respond to this hypocritical sentiment, just nodded politely. I should get back to the meeting. Good luck, Dominic. After a few steps, Gareth stopped, turned back and added, by the way, if you're still considering returning to New York, don't waste your time. It's not because of me, but because of your own choices. Some paths, once chosen, cannot be retraced. With that, Gareth returned to the hall, immersing himself in the next discussion topic, leaving Dominic standing alone in the corridor, facing the irreversible consequences of his choices. For Gareth, all of this was already in the past. He did not let the shadow of betrayal cloud his future, but learned from it, becoming more cautious, but not completely closed off. Work was still an important part of his life, but no longer everything. He learned to seek value and meaning beyond his investment portfolio. That summer, Gareth decided to take a long vacation, enjoying his first time completely away from work in years. On a remote Greek island, sitting on a terrace at the edge of a cliff, he watched the sunset reflecting golden light on the Aegean Sea, reflecting on life's ups and downs. His phone rang. It was a colleague from the New York office. An important client wants to see you tomorrow. I told him you're on vacation, but he insisted that. Tell him I'll be back in 2 weeks and would be happy to schedule a meeting, Gareth said calmly. Right now, I have more important things to do. Hanging up, Gareth continued to admire the beautiful scenery before him. He recalled that decisive moment in court, the expressions on Penelope and Dominic's faces when he presented the medical report. It wasn't the satisfaction of revenge, but the relief of finally letting go of a heavy burden. Life is like the financial market. Each decision has its value and risk. Gareth chose not revenge, but fairness, letting each person face the consequences of their choices. Now, he was enjoying the peace and freedom brought by his wise choices, far from the shadows of betrayal and deception. In that perfect summer dusk, Gareth raised his glass, toasting to the next chapter of life. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating content. We look forward to meeting you in our next story.